Welcome back, everyone. As you probably guessed from the title of the video as well as the thumbnail, this is the Optic that we're talking about today. This one here has been a long time in the making. I've had the Holosun 507 comp since it was announced, so I believe about 2 years now. I quite literally have thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds through pistols with this mounted up on there. I have shot it in every single lighting condition you can think of, and spoiler alert, I am a fan of the Optic for sure. There is some cons to it, or are some cons to it rather, but there are a ton of pros, especially considering the price point. So I suppose with all of that, let's get into it. Getting into the Optic itself, first off, it does have the Trijicon RMR footprint, so probably the most universal footprint out there on the market. However, the window size on it is actually quite a bit larger than the RMR. We should be rolling in some B-roll here that you guys can actually see them compared side by side. But the RMR, a very proven, a very durable American-made optic, does have some shortcomings. One of them, of course, is going to be that window size, but a lot of people do like the footprint. One thing that's interesting about that footprint is that a lot of optics that have the similar footprint don't have the ability to change the battery without re-zeroing the optic. So for example, on the RMR, you have to actually remove it from the pistol, put the battery in on the bottom, and then re-zero the gun. However, with the Holosun there, we have that side tray in the 1632 battery. So that way they get around that and you don't actually have to re-zero your gun should you change your battery. Speaking of battery life, again, I've had this one in for about 2 years now. I've never changed the battery on it, but they say that it's going to give you roughly 50,000 hours on setting 6. There are a number of different brightness settings for daylight as well as night vision settings. There's 2 of those. Under night vision, I really do like the reticle system there, which I suppose leads us to the reticle system. So it has the competition reticle system, is what Holosun calls it, the CRS. The competition reticle system offers you the ability to set it up really however you want with a ton of different options on there. So it has a 2 MOA center dot, and then it has a number of concentric rings around it that you can pick which one you want, or any number of combinations of them. You can also choose just the outer rings. If you want to, basically to work through the different modes, you just hold down the minus button there on the left side of the optic, and you will just cycle through all of the different reticles on there. Me personally, the 2 that I found myself using more often than not is going to be the 2 MOA dot with the 8 MOA circle around it. That one for a lot of like dynamic shooting, like speed shooting, transitioning quickly between targets, for me, I did find to be relatively pleasing to my eye. And then the other one I found myself using a lot was that 32 MOA and then the 2 MOA dot in the center, because for a lot of people in a lot of like weird shooting situations, that outer ring there being a little bit larger makes the dot easier to find, again, when shooting from awkward shooting positions. If you're just standing on a flat range and shooting, with enough practice, you're really not going to miss the dot. But if you are laying down on your side, shooting from a bench, things like that, that outer ring does help you find the dot and also helps you track it. That's definitely one thing I liked about that 32 MOA circle. So with the larger window here, one thing that gives you is just more forgiveness in general. So whether it be picking up the dot on presentation and or tracking the dot through follow through and recoil, with that larger window, there is a little bit more jumpiness in your slide that you can have, but still maintain constant focus on the dot. That is something that a lot of people like. Additionally, with the 2 and the 8 MOA dot, one thing that allows you to do, it's very similar to folks who shoot like 10 MOA dots and stuff like that. A lot of people who like the larger dots on their pistol sights, one reason they like it is it enables them to call their shots better, simply because you pick up the motion as you press the trigger a little bit better. Pros and cons there, and I'm sure there's going to be reviewers out there who are like, no, I just love my 20 MOA circle and I roll with that the entire time. So if that's you, there you go. But again, the beauty of the system is that it allows you, the user, to pick whichever reticle system that you want to use and then go ahead and use that. And before we talk about night vision, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's video, and that is the folks over at 1775 Coffee. Why do many of us drink coffee? Well, we want it to clear our head, lift our energy, and we don't want to have a crash that you get with a lot of other caffeine sources. So that's what good coffee is supposed to feel like and what it's supposed to do. And that's what you get with 1775 Coffee. Their coffee is organic, single origin, high altitude, and small batch roasted. That means no toxins, acidity, jitters, just smooth, clean coffee that fuels your day without weighing you down. And right now, with their free starter kit, you get 3 bags of premium coffee plus exclusive coffee merch, including a matte black tumbler, frother, gold scoop, or reusable K-cup filter. You pay for 2 bags of coffee and $17.75 covers the rest. Whether you drink whole bean, ground coffee, or K-cup pods, you can just pick from the drop-down menu. This means you're paying less than $1 a cup for quality coffee you won't find in most stores. Head over to 7075coffee.com/GNG and start your morning with coffee that supports your values and your health. So as we alluded to earlier, I have shot this under night vision passively in two different types of setups. One just on a pistol, I believe it was a Glock if I remember correctly. And in both settings, one thing I definitely like about the Optic is that 2 MOA dot only. For shooting under night vision, that in my opinion is the best option. You don't really want the larger circles on there, just again, as my eye sees it anyway. And shooting passively, either using a handgun or having it piggyback mounted on top of an LPVO, very, very easy to pick up. The light transmission around the actual dot itself with the clarity of the glass is very good, especially when you compare it to something like a Trijicon RMR. That sort of bluish tint works perfectly fine under night vision. However, you do lose some of the details around the dot when looking through it under night vision, especially. With this one, you definitely get better situational awareness around the dot. However, those circles, in my opinion, under night vision were just a little bit distracting. Your mileage may vary. However, for night vision shooting, that larger window also helps you pick it up. So definitely one of the better options out there if you guys aren't looking for a closed emitter option for night vision shooting. I realize that's probably not a ton of you, but something to consider. At this point in 2025, I realize most people watching this video have probably either owned or shot some of the Holosun dots, but one thing to kind of keep in mind for those who are new to it is that Holosun, most of them, if not all of them at this point, do come with the shake awake system enabled. I believe the factory default setting is to 10 minutes. However, you can go through and change your default of the shake awake settings. So that way, if you want it to stay on longer, you can do that for whatever your application might be. But that shake awake system has been very reliable in my opinion. I've never had it malfunction, no issues with it at all. And of course, that's what gives you the battery life up to 50,000 hours, as they say. So that shake awake system does work quite well. Additionally, one thing to talk about is that as it comes out of the box, when you get this thing in, it will come with the auto adjusting sensor. So that way the brightness of the reticle will change depending on what it senses here on the Optic. You absolutely can override that. I overrode mine almost immediately and have been running it on manual the entire time. That's my personal preference. The auto brightness settings on this are actually pretty good, and for probably 95% of you out there, 95% of the situations anyway, it would work perfectly fine. However, one thing that we're gonna get to, I guess it'll bring us to a con of the Optic, is that down here at my range here in Florida, just the way the range is set up and the way the lanes are oriented, one thing I frequently find myself shooting with is the sun behind me. It's very, very common at that range, so I have spent a ton of time with this Optic with the sun behind me, and the auto brightness just doesn't do all that well in that specific instance when you have a bright sun right behind you shining through. And then the other con that I would say of this Optic, but it's kind of, we have to weigh it a little bit, is that the emitter, for those who don't know, the emitter is right here on the Optic, and the emitter with the sun right behind you, for some reason there is a little bit of reflection right on the top of the glass as you're looking through it of the actual emitter itself. Some people will perceive that as a false dot. That said, compared to other optics that have a very similar type of issue with double dots, or some people will see multiple dots depending on the actual optic and the conditions that you're in, I think that's kind of like the best case of a bad scenario, if you will. And the reason for that is that it's so obvious that what you're seeing is a reflection of the emitter, and it's absolutely not the dot. So it's a false dot in the fact that there is something else on your screen in that one weird lighting scenario. Again, the sun directly behind you coming through the Optic, but again, it is very obvious as to what the real dot is versus what the emitter is being reflected off of. Just thought I'd point that out there because it is something you might have to deal with if you find yourself shooting in those conditions. And we got just a few other points here to talk about before we close the video out. Number one, the Optic itself is made out of 7075 T6 aluminum, very durable aluminum. It has that hard coat anodized finish on there. I've had no issues with the finish, no issues with rust or anything like that. The windage and elevation adjustments are 1 MOA each, and you can feel the clicks on them. They're not the most tactile, but you definitely know when you're moving it. Now, one of the cons I will say is that the adjustments there, the actual point where you're going to stick your Holosun tool in there, which comes with it, is relatively small. I would like it to have the ability just to use a small screwdriver or something like that. I understand why they do it the way they do it, that small adjustment point, because it makes it less likely that it will be inadvertently adjusted. But I do think that, you know, a more common tool would be nice. At least that is my personal preference on it. Obviously, the reticle on this one here is in green. It also comes in red, whichever you prefer, and go with that. I tend to prefer green if I could only have one. That said, I have multiple optics in red and green and other colors as well. They all do work just fine. One thing I will say is that a lot of people who are colorblind will report that the green does pick up a little bit better to their eyes. So just know that about the actual optic itself. Speaking of the durability on it with that 7075 T6 housing, if you do drop this, mount it up like say on a Glock 45 and just drop it from shoulder height on steel or on concrete, it absolutely will crack. Just know that it is one of the downsides of having a larger window. Everything else being equal, which it never is, but let's just pretend it is. Everything else being equal, the larger the window you make, the easier it is for cracking. Obviously, the opposite is true as well. So the smaller you make it, the less likely it is to crack as well. This does not have any sort of solar failsafe, which Holosun does on a lot of their optics. That said, again, the battery life is very, very good, and I doubt you're ever going to need it. And honestly, with that, that's pretty much what I have on this particular optic. One thing that I know a lot of people will ask me, because a lot of people know I have it, is this guy here is the Vortex Defender XL. Which would I prefer? Well, I haven't done my Vortex review yet. You guys are just gonna have to stay tuned for that, and maybe we'll do a battle of the pistol dots one day down the road. That said, for the price point this optic comes in at, I believe the MSRP is 425 units of measure. We can't talk about price on YouTube. That said, retail price is going to be under 400 units of measure, and if you guys are following me on my social media and or signed up for my email, you'll know that frequently they are a good bit below that. And for the price point and the performance that we had so far, I would absolutely recommend this optic, no doubt, without any sort of reservations. Works extremely well. It's been very durable. I've racked it off of multiple tables and things like that to reload your slide, or to run your slide rather. I've had no issues in terms of durability. Again, would I recommend it as a duty optic? No, but for just about every other use, it does what it does very, very well, at least as well as just about anything else on the market, and it's coming in at a pretty competitive price point. So I think that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions about that, anything like that, you can always post those rather down below. If you guys like this type of video and you're not subscribed, you probably should be subscribed, because we do 2 to 4 videos a week here on the channel, pretty similar to this. And if you have subscribed, if you've hit the notification bell and you're not seeing those 2 to 4 videos, easy way to get around that and get around the algorithm, if you will, to actually see my content is to sign up for the email at the website here on your screen. That'll get you put on 2 different emails. One of them is an email that goes out once a month, and it just has all of the videos since the previous month's email went out. So that way there's no big tech giant censoring your eyes from my content. Additionally, it'll get you put on the daily deals email, which, as the name implies, goes out just about every day, and it has 8 to 10 of the best deals that we find around the internet. If the item, whatever the item is in the email on a given day, it's the cheapest I know of for that item on the internet. So that way, hopefully it saves you guys some time, because I've already done the price comparisons for you, and hopefully saves you some money as well. We also have an SMS list that you guys can sign up for. You can do so either at the website on your screen, or you can text the code here on your screen to this number. And basically that goes out at most once a day, and it will, generally speaking, either have one of 2 things in there: either a new video that just dropped, once again getting around that algorithm, letting you guys actually see my content, or it'll have a smoking deal in there, something that I know is going to go out of stock relatively soon if I don't get it right to you guys in your inbox, so that way you guys can take advantage of the best deals out there. And I think that's pretty much it. Thank you all for watching. I truly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video.